Professor Yxtera had taught xenobiology at the Galactic University for over 2 centuries, but she had never seen her students react quite like this. The lecture hall, designed to accommodate beings from dozens of different species, had become a symphony of terror. Chittering mandibles, flashing bioluminescent patches, and nervous tentacle writhing filled the air as her class watched the live holographic feed from the university's secure biolab. In the center of the containment field, a human student was methodically wrestling a Vrexnathi devourer.
"This is insane!"
whispered Klexera, her crystalline form vibrating with anxiety.
"That creature has killed 3 exploration teams this semester alone."
The Vrexnathi stood nearly 4 meters tall, with razor-sharp claws that could slice through battle armor, and acidic saliva that could dissolve titanium. Its species had evolved on a world where everything was actively trying to kill everything else, making them one of the most feared predators in known space. Most military units required heavy weapons and coordinated tactics just to survive an encounter with one. Jake Morrison, meanwhile, was treating it like a particularly aggressive wrestling partner.
"Note the defensive posture,"
Professor Yxtera said, trying to maintain her academic composure while her 4 hearts hammered in terror.
"The Vrexnathi typically leads with its primary claws and a downward strike pattern."
Jake ducked under the creature's swipe with casual ease, wrapped his arms around its torso, and executed what humans called a
hip toss.
The apex predator found itself flat on its back, momentarily stunned by the unexpected reversal.
"What is he doing?"
shrieked a Zephyri student, his 6 eyes bulging in horror.
"His homework,"
Jake called back cheerfully, somehow hearing the outburst through the containment field's audio feed. He was currently in the process of putting the Vrexnathi in what appeared to be some form of submission hold.
"Professor Yxtera said we needed to demonstrate understanding of predator behavior patterns through direct observation."
The Vrexnathi thrashed violently, its claws leaving gouges in the reinforced floor. Any normal being would have been shredded instantly. Jake simply adjusted his grip and continued his running commentary.
"See, the interesting thing about Vrexnathi aggression is that it's mostly for show,"
he explained, maintaining his hold as the creature tried to bite his head off.
"They're ambush predators by nature, so when forced into extended combat, they actually tire pretty quickly."
Professor Yxtera checked her notes with trembling appendages.
That is technically correct, but how could you possibly know that without? My homeworld has similar predators,"
Jake said matter-of-factly.
"Crocodiles, bears, big cats. Same basic principles apply."
He paused as the Vrexnathi made another attempt to disembowel him.
"Though I'll admit this guy's got better reach than a grizzly."
The creature's struggles were indeed becoming less frantic. Jake maintained his hold with practiced patience, occasionally adjusting his position to avoid the worst of its defensive strikes. To the horrified alien students, it looked like their classmate was casually wrestling with death itself.
"This is impossible,"
muttered Dr. Kefine, the professor's research assistant.
"Vrexnathi are classified as Class A extinction threats. Military protocols require orbital bombardment as the primary response option. Different worlds, different solutions,"
Jake replied with a grunt of effort. The Vrexnathi had just tried to roll over and crush him, but he'd smoothly transitioned to a different hold.
"Where I come from, you don't get to call in orbital strikes every time something tries to eat you."
Professor Yxtera realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. In 300 years of xenobiological study, she had never seen anyone attempt physical subdual of a Vrexnathi. The very concept was considered suicidal by every major species in the galaxy.
"Jake,"
she called through the intercom,
"perhaps you could expedite your demonstration? The other students appear to be experiencing cardiac events." "Sure thing, Prof."
Jake shifted his position one final time.
"The key is finding the pressure point behind their skull ridge. My wrestling coach back on Earth always said every predator has a reset button, you just have to find it.
His thumb found the exact spot, and the Vrexnathi went limp instantly, entering a natural defensive hibernation state. The lecture hall fell completely silent. Jake stood up, dusting off his university uniform, and gave the unconscious apex predator a friendly pat.
So, for my report, I can confirm that Vrexnathi behavioral patterns follow standard terrestrial predator models with minor adaptations for their acid-based digestive system and extended limb reach. They're actually pretty reasonable once you establish dominance through non-lethal physical contact.
He looked up at the observation window, where his classmates were staring in shock.
Should I wake him up for the second part of the assignment, or is this enough data for now?
Professor Yixtera made several notes that she would later realize were completely illegible due to her shaking appendages. In her academic recommendations that evening, she wrote,
"Human students require special consideration for field work assignments. What constitutes dangerous research may vary significantly from galactic standard assumptions."
She also made a personal note to requisition stronger sedatives for her other students. If Jake Morrison was typical of his species' approach to academic challenges, she suspected her class would need them. The Vrexnathi, meanwhile, woke up an hour later with what could only be described as a confused expression. For the first time in its evolutionary history, it had encountered a creature that had overpowered it without trying to kill it. The experience was so unprecedented that it spent the rest of the day following Jake around like a curious puppy, much to the continued horror of the university's security staff.